What's up, everybody? It's Nick here, and today I'm showing you guys how to do an oil change on your vehicle. It's actually really easy, and it's basic maintenance that needs to be done at a certain interval, so that way you can keep your motor running in tip-top shape. But let's get right into it. So first things first, how do you actually find what kind of motor oil you need in your car? Well, the first option, you can find your owner's manual if you still have it. It'll say in there exactly what kind of oil you need. You can Google it, just look up the year, make, and model of your car, and if you know the engine, that'll help a lot. Or if you come under the hood, some of them do have on the oil fill cap here, as you can see, the type of oil I need. Now in my case, I need 10W30, so I'll go to the auto parts store, look for 10W30 oil for a gasoline motor. Now mine, I've ran multi-synthetic, full synthetic, and regular conventional. I don't really have a preference, they're all pretty similar. Currently I have the conventional because it's the cheapest. Another thing to know, if your vehicle takes 0W16 or 0W20 oil, that is a full synthetic oil. There is no conventional oil that is 0W16 or 0W20. Typically newer cars with those turbocharged engines, the small, 4-cylinder, maybe 6 cylinders, those take those really thin light oils. But something like 5W30, 10W30, anything like that, conventional, synthetic, whatever you please, it'll work. We have to get the vehicle lifted in the air so you can actually get underneath it to do the oil change. My preferred way is ramps just because they're really easy, but you can use jack and jack stands, whatever you prefer. So, after you get the vehicle to operating temperature, you can shut it down, and I let it sit for probably 10 minutes. This just makes it so the oil flows good. It's still warm, but it's not blisteringly hot. Now we're all good to slide underneath it and begin draining the oil. So actually sliding underneath the car, that way is the front of the vehicle. This is my oil pan. As you can see, it runs the entire length of the engine. Here's my transmission. It'll typically be right in the middle, towards the back here, or sometimes around the front. But just look, you'll have an oil pan, there'll be a drain plug in it, and it'll typically be on the bottom of the engine. If you look up there, you can see there's a knock sensor, and then there's the engine block. And right here's the oil filter. Mine's located right next to the transmission. Sometimes an oil filter will actually be located up front here. They're kind of a pain to get to in that case. In my personal experience, I found it was easier to get to the oil filter from the bottom if they're up front, but in some cases you will have better luck just from going from up here to loosen it. Then you want to find the right socket for your plug. You want your bucket underneath the drain plug. You want to get your ratchet and loosen up the drain plug. Should not be tight at all. Let's see if we can do this without making a mess. Those are always the famous last words, is try not to make a mess. We did pretty good, I would say. Set your drain plug off to the side and let that drain. Then while that's finishing up, we can come up here and loosen up our filter. May need a wrench just to break it free. Same as the oil plug, these do not need to be tight. So this here is an oil filter wrench. This is what I like to use. It is the most universal. Basically you open it and it grabs your oil filter so that way you can loosen it. This is another kind, same thing, you grab it, this wraps around, this is rubbery so it grips the filter. Or they make these oil filter sockets. Now this is not a universal thing, this is for a specific oil filter. You need to get your filter size so you can use one of these. This basically just sticks on a ratchet, you can use it just like a socket. If I had to recommend one, I would definitely say this. All of these are available at basic auto parts stores. If you want to make sure you also have your drain bucket ready, there is going to be oil in the filter. You want to make sure you catch all that. Try to do your best to contain the mess, unlike me. Kind of messed it up. And this is gonna have some oil in it. Might be a little heavy, but just like that, our oil filter is out. And you see that orange O-ring there, you always want to make sure that comes out because sometimes it does get stuck on the mating surface. And if it does get stuck, you have to peel it off. Can you miss it, then you'll have an oil leak right there. So just double check that the O-ring came off with the old filter. I recommend filling your oil filter. Mine is vertical, so I will be able to actually fill it. Now this step isn't required because some vehicles you physically cannot pre-fill the filter. This just makes it easier on the oil pump when you first start cranking the motor over. It'll speed up the oil circulation by maybe a second. It will not hurt your engine if you don't pre-fill the filter. You also just want to get some oil on your finger, lube up the O-ring here. Then we're good to go install it. And we're gonna get your new filter, get it up here, and just get it started. These oil filters don't need to be tight. On the instructions, it actually says just to get it as tight as you can by hand. Then get your filter wrench and do one more, just a little quarter turn just to really snug it down. That's tight, good. Next I'm gonna come right here and just start your drain plug by hand. And go in here with your ratchet and just snug it. This does not need to be tight as well. Just snug, just about there is pretty good. Not over tight. Then come in here, clean up with your rag so you can see if there's any oil leaks. So now with everything snugged up down there, we can grab our funnel and begin adding the new oil. So I actually have some Lucas here, as you can see. So I'm only gonna add 4 quarts because that's what it says. 4 quarts of oil, 1 quart of Lucas. All right, that's about 4 quarts. We can get our Lucas stuff out. And if you look on the side of the oil jug here, you see quarts and liters. We're in quarts, so you'll see exactly how much oil is left. Now, I used 4 quarts of oil, 1 quart of Lucas, but this just tells you how much oil is in the jug, so you know how much you've added. All right, so now we have 5 quarts of fluid in there. So now we can add our oil cap. We can go start the engine. And now with it off the ramps and on level ground, we can let it sit for a little bit so we can check the oil level to make sure we don't need to add any more. It's been sitting. Let's come in here, clean off our dipstick, and check our level. There's oil. It's right above the full. So I actually have a little bit too much, but that's not that bad. And this motor holds 5 quarts of oil. So looking at the dipstick, that little bit over full isn't gonna hurt it. I maybe added an extra half quart or so, but you can't actually add too much. There's more than a quart extra in there. You might want to drain some because that will actually hurt it. But you always want to make sure that you have it all the way up to the full line. You don't want it beneath the full line, but you want to try your best to get it right on the money on the full line. So we are successful. And you always want to recycle your old oil. You don't want to just dump it somewhere. You can take it to auto parts stores, things like that. They should take it so it gets recycled. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you all for watching the video. I will see you guys next time. Doing an oil change is really easy. You have to do it at your manufacturer interval if you want your engine to last. But the point is, oil's cheap, motors are not, so change your oil. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.